Hey guys, my name is Dr. Jay Siddiqui. I am a general dentist from Chevy Chase, Maryland, and I'm making this video to compare the Medit i900 and the Trios 5. I got both scanners. I've been using the Trios 5 for over a year. Recently got the Medit i900. I also have the i700 wireless and the i700, and before that I had the i500. Um, in my practice, I've mainly been using the Trios 5 for the past year. It's been a great scanner, and I wanted to create this video so that way you can see and compare real live time scanning of uh, both scanners to kind of make a decision on your own in terms of what you would want for your practice. Just a little brief overview of the i900. It's lighter, smaller than the i700. It's supposed to be the lightest and smallest scanner on the market. And they also increased the size of the scanner tip to it. They have a medium, small, and large. For all these videos, I've mainly used the large scanning tip. It captures more data in one go. So let's get started. I'll show you the first video here of scanning with the Trios 5. This is an implant case, so you can see that I'm scanning the soft tissue profile first, and then I'll go through the different scans further on. One thing in terms of the scanning that I'm showing, I thought it would be showing both scans in the video recording, but unfortunately did not. So the first couple of videos is different scans from the Trios 5 and the Medit i900. Later on, I have a couple scans that are the same patient, so you can get a more direct comparison. In general, the Trios 5 does a pretty good job in terms of capturing data very quickly, and the tissue profile for implants especially. You can see I had to click on the area of the implant to kind of remove the data for scanning the scan body. And it just takes a couple seconds. You can see it's already been about 10 seconds, and it captured most of the data for the desk scan body that I have right there. This was a Megagen implant that I had placed. You can see that only took about 14 seconds. So each scan that I've done, it's probably been under 20 seconds each. And you can see how quickly it picks up the bite scan. So really about a minute for the total amount of scanning time with the Trios 5 there. And here I'm just trying to show the processing that it takes in terms of the scan afterwards, how long it takes, so you can kind of get an idea. Both scanners I used my desktop computers that I have in my operatories. They're i900s, 13th generation, 64 gigabytes of RAM with 380 GTX graphics cards, RTX. You can see the scan data there. It's after it's processed. So then we got another scan with the Trios 5. You can see it's how long it takes in terms of heating up the tip right there. It doesn't take too long. In this case, I was scanning a hybrid that was done. So you can see how well it captures the edentulous ridges going back. And then right now it's capturing the prosthesis. This is a live scan. This is not jumping from my. Sometimes when you record videos, I notice that it jumps automatically to what you were scanning next, and you can speed it up. So sometimes that can make it seem that it's going faster than it is, but this is a real live time scan of the prosthesis that I'm doing right here. The nice thing about the Trios 5 I've liked is that it does has I believe it's AI technology that is automatically trying to stitch it together, um, the scan data, making sure that we are getting as accurate as possible, especially on the edentulous ridges. You can see I had to click on the areas where the implants are. I'm going to cut this data a little bit more because it doesn't allow me to do that automatically. I'll say that in terms of the cutting the data, it does a pretty good job. I'm used to the Medit cutting data, quite honestly, as opposed to the Trios 5. By the way, if you want to jump around in this video, it's a longer video because I didn't want to shorten any of the scanning, so that way you guys can get an idea of how long it takes for each scan, different types of scans. So I got the prosthesis cut out. You can see the soft tissue there, so we'll see how it does with the soft tissue in a second. And here we go. So see, it picked up right where I was left off in terms of the scan data. I didn't have any trouble keeping track of where I was. And you can see there's a little bit of data overlap, but it kind of aligned itself right onto it there. It does a good job of capturing the multi-unit abutments. In this video, I forgot to record for the scan body scan as well, but you get an idea of how it did on that edentulous ridge, even though there was some multi-unit abutments there. This was a scan that I had done on the Medit i900. I guess I forgot to record the actual scan part, but you can see I captured the interproximals pretty well. There was a little bit of data overlap there, so that's the lower there. So first half of this video, it's more heavy on the trio scans, and then I'll go into the i900 scans a little bit later. By the way, the i900 scans were all done before the firmware update, so keep that in mind. So this is a case that I had scanned for an immediate denture. You can see how it's doing on the edentulous ridge on the extensions there. It does a good job keeping track of where it is on the scan. And then the upper was also an edentulous ridge as well. One thing I do like about the Medit over the Trios 5 is the capability to filter out the glove. Perhaps Trios has it. I haven't looked into it, but I know it's easy on Medit to add the color of your glove on there, so that way you don't accidentally scan the glove into your scan. Although the Trios 5 does an excellent job of filtering that out afterwards, cutting data out, and if you go over that scan area again, you just cut it out automatically. You can see there at that point it did a little data correction because of my shaky hand on the posterior there. So with the bite on these, I wanted to test and see if I could get a bite just by putting like cotton rolls in there and see if it would capture uh, the ridges in correspondence to where they were with each other. You'll see in a second I struggled with the Trios 5 a bit to try to get it to align. But in a later part of the video, you'll see on the Medit i900, I was actually able to capture it. And when I translated that into an immediate denture, it actually worked out pretty well for the surgery. You can see right there, it's having trouble picking it up. I got the bottom one because of those teeth that are there. But trying to keep track of it and going to the upper ridge was the most difficult part. And I think that's where the Medit i900 large scan tip really came into play on that. And you can see it didn't align the areas, which it's fine. I was able to use the Medit i900 scan for that. So here it is, the same case on the Medit i900. I started with the upper arch there. And this is with the large scan tip. It does a pretty good job keeping track of where it is. Loses it a couple times, I just go back a little bit. Yeah, and this is real time. I did not do the recording button on the Medit because sometimes when you do that, it will automatically jump and you can't get an idea of how well it was tracking, how fast it was scanning during the process. I think it definitely does a better job of tracking than the i700. It's not quite as good as the Trios 5, but I think the large scan tip helps a lot in certain aspects. I think if they updated the algorithm for the i900, and maybe they did that in the latest firmware, it'll have a better job of tracking, utilizing the large scan tip field of view to help better track. Because I think right now at the moment it's probably using the same algorithm as the i700 based on my experience in terms of tracking. There you go, that's the upper arch. Now we're going to do the lower arch. You can see it did a pretty decent job of tracking back the dental span back there, but it's having trouble kind of picking it back up and tracking. So we got that. And then it also calls into the question of, is this actually an accurate scan? Which, comparing it to the Trios 5, it was, pretty on point, but I need to compare it to a PVS impression or alginate impression, scan that and then bring those in and compare it. For the purpose of the immediate denture, it worked out fine. But you can see how I'm having a little bit of trouble tracking towards the posterior there. This is similar to the problem I had on the i700. It does a bit of a better job, in my opinion, but it still struggles a little bit with the tracking. That's why I think it's using a similar algorithm, and they need to update the algorithm to really take advantage of the large scan tip and the field of view that they have with it. Take a little more risk with that algorithm for tracking. And you can see I had accidentally forgot to get the posterior a little bit more on the facial side there, or the anterior on the facial side. And this is where I found it really interesting was scanning the bite. It was actually able, because of the large field of view with the large scan tip, it was actually able to capture both arches pretty well in terms of where I wanted the bite to be. You can see I was just getting that into position. In terms of the Medit i900, one thing I had to get used to was the touch interface on the scanner itself as opposed to the physical buttons. Doing a double tap would start the scan, and then you would have a little delay. There you go. You can see that it got both the top arch, and now I'm on the bottom arch, making sure that gets correlated. And there we go. Um, Talking about the physical versus the touch interface, I think over time I will get used to the touch interface, and I think it's very intuitive how they did it, but it takes some getting used to for sure. Um, one thing is the delay when you double tap it. They give you some time to put it in the mouth. So this is another i900 scan. This is a dentate scan. Um, I believe I was scanning for a night guard, but we'll see in terms of the occlusion. And you can see it does a good job of getting the interproximals there. It does a good job tracking on dentate patients. You can see it got that posterior pretty easily. That's with the large scan tip, it has the advantage of that. You can see that was a pretty quick scan in terms of the doing it with the i900. And that was when I was trying to figure out how to do the movements. I'm still not used to the touch interface. You can see me going off the screen there, trying to bring it back. I was trying to figure out how to get it to go to the next scan. A lot of time I ended up just using my mouse because I'm not used to the touch interface. But overall, you can see in the interproximals it captured it pretty well. Just going back to get that little bit of scan data there. I was surprised that it didn't actually automatically track that area when I was trying to get the data. Yeah, this was where the touch screen was getting a little bit too sensitive to my fat fingers. I don't know if you noticed right before the scan started, I was trying to get the double tap to work. Again, touch interface takes some time getting used to, but once you get used to it, it's pretty intuitive. And this is the lower arch dentate. It's doing a pretty good job of capturing everything there. You can see. Again, I'm scanning this on a desktop computer with an i9 generation and 64 gigabytes of RAM and a 380 graphics card. Picks up the byte pretty quickly. I think overall it does a good job. It's a very fast scanner. Again, under a couple minutes of doing that scan. And then I do the other side trying to capture the bite. I think I had accidentally done the same side, so I was going back to rescan. Oh, I see. I had accidentally pressed the back button on the touchscreen with my fat fingers. There we go. Okay, so this is another patient that I had. It was I was going to temporize her, so I did a quick scan of some preps. You can see how it's going around, capturing the preps and the tissue there. It does a pretty good job. It's going pretty smoothly, keeping track, capturing those interproximal areas, all the data. One thing I will say that I do like about the Trios 5 or the i900 is the scanner tips are closed, so meaning there's glass over where the actual scanning is happening. The reason why I like that is because it allows it as a surface for me to glide over the teeth. I have to hover a little bit with the i900 because even though one benefit of that is being able to put the tooth literally on the scanner and go a little bit further deeper, for example, if you have a deep margin or something. But I like the gliding effect that I have with that glass going over the teeth. It helps a bit in terms of scanning. So they have their benefits and their cons. You can see there that's the scan with the Medit i900, went pretty quickly. This was a case that I ended up doing a quick temporization from the wax up in exocad. So this next case, I just took it as it was a patient that came in for an implant consult. So I took a preliminary scan. He has a bunch of broken teeth, a bunch of missing teeth. So you'll see on the scan, it does a pretty good job of picking up all the data there, especially, for example, on that distal and on that molar that is scanning right now. It did a good job of picking all that up. Again, good. It does a good job of keeping track of where it's at. I say it's definitely improvement over the i700. I still think Trios 5 is a bit better in terms of keeping track, especially on edentulous ridges. Dentate cases, I think the i900 edges out a little bit in terms of capturing data because of the large scan tip. So it did a good job picking up that tori area as well. You can see I'm trying to get on the posterior on the mandible there. Was struggling a little bit, but I was able to get pretty far back on there. Um, This is where I was having a little bit of trouble keeping track right there, but we were able to get it. Again, I think all they need is to update their algorithm in terms of tracking for the i900, and I think it would do a very nice job because of the large field of view. And then the other thing that they talk about on the i900 is that it's using a third generation uh, technology for in terms of this optical technology there in terms of scanning. Um, that's all I could find out on their website. There was no details, so I'd love to know what the improvements were made. I'll have to do a little bit more research on that. They didn't make it very easy to find on their website. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Trios 5 is wireless while the i900 is corded. So I do wish that they would have made the i900 wireless. In terms, I understand why they did it in terms of how the i700 wireless, a lot of people were complaining and struggling with the wireless connectivity. I was not one of them. I thought it actually did a very decent job. The only thing was you had to make sure that the wireless hub was in the field of view, was a direct line of the scanner. But overall, I did not have a problem with that. Um, and I think the Dexys scanner and the Trios 5 both use the TP-Link Wi-Fi adapter in terms of connecting to the laptop, and I think the Trios or the Medit should have used the similar technology. It's a shame, especially with how light it is. It would have, the battery pack adds some weight, but I don't think it would have added that much weight. So this next scan is a denture scan. I wanted to show with the large field of view how easy it is to scan a denture with the i900. I thought it did an excellent job. I think it does a better job in terms of capturing depth, especially if you have a denture where it has a little bit of undercuts that you're trying to scan. Trios 5 tended to struggle with that. Not to say the Trios 5 didn't do a good job, it's just I think the depth goes a little bit further on the Medit i900, again because of the lack of glass on the scanner tip, where the Trios 5 has the glass on the scanner tip, so you can't really put anything into the scanner tip per se. But the large field of view on the Medit i900 makes this very easy to scan because it's able to keep track of where it is, and you don't have any tissue moving as well. I think that's one thing to keep in mind with scanning edentulous ridges, is especially on the lower mandible, is that you have a lot of movable gingiva that's really causing confusion in terms of the tracking. And there you go. It didn't take long at all for that denture scan. I was scanning the lower there, the lower denture. Picks up the data quite easily. Again, no movable tissue makes it a lot easier to track with the scanner. And it does a good job tracking really all the reason why you see the breaks in scanning is just me rotating the denture. And there we go. I forgot to turn off the color filter on this one, so that's why you see the glove in there. But see, I like the Medit in terms of the trimming. It's a lot easier, in my opinion, to trim on the Medit than on the Trios. And then scanning the bite with the dentures, I put them in the mouth for this and correlated the bite that way. And I can make any adjustments in exocad in terms of the occlusion and the teeth setup for this case. You can see I'm trying to, yeah, see I was trying to use the touch screen to do the double tap, but then I accidentally swiped it back because of my fat fingers. So, and now you can see I'm using the mouse to get it back there. You can see that little delay that it allows for you to double tap and then put it in the mouth for scanning. Capture the bite pretty quickly on that. There we go, scanning the other side, and there we go. Again, didn't take that long at all. This is the next case here. I will let you know as you see the scanning what it is. I know it's a dentate case at least. And I remember in this case, for some reason, I was getting some artifacts while I was scanning when the scanning was done and removed all the artifacts, but I couldn't remember the reason why I was getting those artifacts during the scanning. It might have been that there was something in the scanner tips, some gauze that I perhaps did not fully remove. But regardless of that, it did an excellent job scanning. There you go, remove the artifacts, capture that scan pretty quickly. I believe I was scanning for a night guard in this case. Again, this is with the i900 currently. And this was a implant case. You can see the implant right there, trying to capture the soft tissue with the Medit i900. There was two implants on each side of the arch. You can see right there. These were definitely not ideal implants, unfortunately, placed by the oral surgeon. But in terms of the ridges there, they made do with what they could. So in this case, I was going to do some tissue profiling to help the tissue in those areas because they put some pretty narrow healing abutments on there. You can see it did a pretty good job of capturing the tissue profile of what was there. Only thing now I needed to capture that interproximal area on that tooth there. And trying to angle it such that it would capture it. There we go. Does a pretty good job of capturing those interproximals. Majority of the time, you don't need to capture the entire interproximal if you got or you don't need to capture all the interproximal as long as you got the majority. The software will fill it in. It's more you need to capture it where the contact areas are going to be to make sure that you have a good contact as you try. If you are worried about capturing towards the cervical, you don't have to worry that much because software will fill it in. The contour of the crown is not going to go into that cervical area anyways. And now I believe I'm going to do the scan body scan of those two implants. It's interesting that on the Medit you don't have to cut out the areas where the implants are, but on the Trios they require it that you cut it. I kind of refer the Medit in terms of that. Um, Also, the one thing I do like more about the Medit software is that I don't have to put in the case information. I can just go straight into scanning because a lot of the time I'm doing it in exocad myself. This is just a quirk of mine in terms of the software, but um, I definitely prefer the Medit in terms of that because with the Trios you have to set all the information in order to even do like a pre-op scan. Whereas on the Medit, I can click that little check with the clipboard and the pencil. I can just click that and add additional scans if I wanted a pre-op or additional scans or a face scan, whatever I would like. So you can see I'm capturing the scan body scan right now. I did go back and rescan it because I was worried about it being so narrow in that area if it actually got held up on the molar right there. So I reseated it and I took an x-ray to confirm that it was seated all the way on that. And it does a good job of capturing the scan body right there. I do like the desk scan bodies because of the geometries in terms of the alignment in exocad. That's just my personal preference. Obviously, if you're doing a full arch and you use the desk scan bodies, like a full arch implant case, the height can be a little bit problematic. And there's the scan body scan you can see there. I was cutting that out um, on the scan body so that way I could re-scan it after seating it again. You can see me trying to attempt to start the scanner and accidentally rotating. I think in the firmware update that they corrected this issue, but don't quote me on that. In terms of the touch screens, the touch interface sensitivity. You can see it does a pretty good job tracking and getting the scan body scan, all the data I want. There we go, it does a quick bite scan, and we'll do the other side as well, capturing data from at least, yeah, I didn't mean to go into the anterior, but capturing data from the canine to the molars back there, and then doing the other side. And that is his actual bite. Again, this was a patient for consult, so this was the lower arch, I believe. Yeah. Oh, I was going in to do the glove filtering at this point. There we go. So you can see it was having a little trouble trying to track towards that back area. Let's try to go on the lingual side to get it into there, to that molar. Yeah, so you can see it does have a little bit of trouble tracking compared to the Trios 5, but overall does a pretty decent job, except for some of the, like these edential spans, trying to keep track of where it's at. You can see me in the bottom right corner trying to immobilize the tongue and the cheek, so that way the tissue would not be moving as much. So that way I could actually get back there to get that scan, the edentulous ridge, which it did a pretty decent job. You can see it actually was able to get back there. Um, Definitely not as easy as the Trios 5, but we got it. You can see on that molar back there while I was scanning, I noticed that for some reason it cut out that data on the, the mesial of it. So I'll probably try to go back and get it, or maybe not. Again, the tissue removal tool is a lot easier on the Medit compared to the Trios, in my opinion. And you can see with the i900, it does a pretty good job of getting that distal of that back molar over there. I'd say that it definitely was easier on the i900 than the Trios 5 in terms of the distal of the back molar and the interproximals as well. And just going back to get those interproximals, changing the angle of my scanner tip so that way it gets a little bit more. And then capturing the bite on that edentulous span, using the anterior teeth there. Thankfully, because of the crowns, I wasn't as worried about the translucency of the enamel disrupting the bite scan. And you can see it was trying to actively correct the bite as it was going along. That's why it's important to capture at least from the canine to the back molars for the bite scan. And then we're back to the trios. This is on the trios. You can see this is a partially edentulous patient. Had the lower, I believe, the lower anteriors. Oh, this is actually the same patient. So yeah, this is the same patient. I'm just showing the scan on the trios now. You see it does a lot better job in terms of tracking on getting that back molar there. Didn't have to go back a couple times, capturing a little bit more on the lingual there, moving the tongue out of the way. And the same thing on the buccal side, pulling the cheek back. And going back, you can see how quickly it got back on there, and it's keeping track of where it is on the scan. I'd say this is definitely the highlight of the Trios 5 is the edentulous ridges on the lower, how easily it's able to scan compared to any other scanner out there. The Medit i900 does a decent job because of the large field of view, but it does lose its tracking from time to time. And we're scanning the upper here. It does again, keep in mind that I've been using the Trios 5 for a good bit of a year, so I'm used to it, and that might play into account of the scanning that you see here. i900, I'm still getting used to it, but again, it does a very decent job. You can see on the interproximals, I have to take a little bit more time on the Trios 5. And did capture the distal of those molars. Again, it is easier on the i900 in my opinion. Again, this is all live scanning. I did not do the after reporting where it will automatically jump to when it tracks again. This is all live time, no speeding up the video, so that way you guys can see how each scanner compares in terms of the actual live scanning. And not quick, there we go, picked up the bite. i900 I'd say is a little bit quicker in terms of picking up the bite on those edentulous areas. Dentate they're about the same, but edentulous it's a lot quicker on the i900. Not to say that you should be using a bite scan like that on the i900. You should really be, for edentulous scans, you should really be using like a bite rim or dentures or something to capture the bite accurately. And that's the scans I have for today. I did, after the firmware update, take some more scans with the i900 that I'll have to share with you guys later. But last thoughts on each of the scanners, I'd say in terms of edentulous scanning, Trios is the king. You can't beat the tracking that it does and how well it captures those edentulous spans, especially on the lower going back. It's able to keep track of where it is even in the worst of conditions. Blood scanning is not a problem. The Medit i900, I didn't show a video of blood scanning, but it does still struggle with blood compared to the Trios 5. However, in terms of the large field of view that it provides with the large scan tip, it does an excellent job in terms of especially the distal back molars, the interproximals, capturing all that in one fewer goes. So if you're looking for a scanner that you want to do more edentulous cases with, I'd say go with the Trios 5. If you're sticking more crown and bridge or dentate cases with occasional edentulous ridges, I think the Medit i900 is a great scanner. I do wish that they would have made it wireless. It's unfortunate, but hopefully in a future iteration they do make it wireless and use like the TP-Link Wi-Fi capabilities, because that I say the Trios 5 does an excellent job with that. And in terms of the bite scanning, they're both about the same. The dentureless ridges, it's easier to capture with the i900, but you shouldn't be capturing dentureless ridges without a bite rim or some kind of record, typically. Denture scans, I'd say the Medit i900 does a bit of a better job because of the large field of view, and you have no mobile tissue, so tracking is not an issue with it at all. So thanks for tuning in. I hope this was helpful, and keep in touch in terms of the next video I'll make with the updated firmware, some more scans of the Medit i900. And I'll talk to you guys later.